Today, we're going to talk about the 3 frameworks to help you land a 200K to a 500K job doing something you truly enjoy while working at a company that you admire. Why are we putting this video together? Well, it's for several reasons. Usually, when we talk to job seekers or we start working with a new client, there's something in one of the following reasons that they are dissatisfied with, right? Or frustrated by. It could be that they don't know where they should be taking their career, or they know where they want to take their career, but they just don't know how to get there. Or throughout their career, they've just felt completely lost. They've bounced around from one company to another, one job to another, doing things that really haven't, that really didn't support their growth, didn't support their goals. You know, they could have worked at one, sometimes they've worked at one company for so long and they've just not been able to move up. A lot of times, clients or people will tell us that, you know, they've been at one company for 8 years, yet they can't get into that director level role, or they feel like they have all the skills and experience and technical aptitude and capabilities to move into a leadership role or a senior leadership role, where in tech, at least, they should be making 200 something K, 300 something K. We've worked with clients that have been stuck at like the 180K, but they know they have all the experience they need to be in the 250s, but they just don't know how to get there, right? So for one reason or another, they are extremely dissatisfied. And because of that, they're very disengaged and they feel sometimes hopeless or frustrated that they can't really just move through this barrier or this roadblock. And this is where we use sometimes all 3 of the frameworks I'm going to show you to help them get really clear on where they're going, or one of the 3 frameworks, or a couple of them, or a combination of them, right? So today we're going to walk you through these frameworks, which once you understand them clearly, they will allow you to, they're going to help you avoid feeling lost in your career, and instead actually give you crystal clear clarity on where you want to take your career, which is the destination. Then once you know the destination or the end goal, using these frameworks, you'll figure out exactly how you're going to get there, which is your map, your roadmap. Also, it's important to determine what stage of career you are in. And so these frameworks will allow you to do that. And then lastly, you'll be able to, once you know the stage, the career that you're in, or the stage of career you're in rather, you'll know what's the right next step based on the current stage that you're in. So let's jump into it. Framework number 1 is called the career progression life cycle. So I will give this to you very much at a high level because we don't have a lot of time in this one. And I can go on for days talking about any of these frameworks, right? But again, knowing how to use these, combining these 3 frameworks will help you get really clear on what to do next. So let's start with framework number 1, the career progression life cycle. In the workforce, there's generally 3 stages to everyone's career. So stage 1, we define as learning. So this is typically when people are early in their career, they're starting out, right? So think of, if you were to attribute age, it doesn't always fall like this, but if you were to attribute age, think of this as kind of like your early 20s to maybe like your early 30s. And so in stage 1, we call it learning. In this stage, you don't really care so much about what your title is. You don't even care about how much you're making. What you really are focused on and what is actually happening is you really care much more about all the things that you are learning about the particular skill set you are focused on. And ideally, you are racking up some some accomplishments along the way, right? So that's what stage 1 is. Focused on learning and getting good at the thing that you are doing and racking up some accomplishments while you're doing that thing or learning that thing. Most people go through this stage relatively seamlessly. Then comes stage 2, which is now, we define that as earning. And in this stage of your career, you are now capitalizing on everything you just spent the last X amount of years learning. So this is usually between the ages of like think of your early 30s, maybe mid 30s to kind of like your late 30s, early 40s. Okay. And in this stage, you're also moving into the early parts of leadership and kind of capping out around the mid parts of leadership. So think going from principal level to manager, then senior manager, and maybe capping out right around director, maybe senior director. Okay. So if like you're in product management, program management, etc., you're usually capping out around like the 200K range, sometimes 170, 180. Then comes the final stage of everyone of your career. This is what we would consider to be the most elusive, but the most sought after. And now this is called steering, as if like you're steering a boat. And in this stage, you are now helping a company move in the direction that aligns with its mission and its vision. And you're doing this in the capacity of a senior leader / executive. So think senior director, think VP, think SVP, and C level. Okay, so now you're usually in the 2s, 3, 4s, 500K range. Now think about something. If you've ever worked for an organization, which many of you probably have and many of our clients have, where you're seeing someone in their late 40s, 50s, or 60s being managed by someone in their 30s, late 30s, or early 40s. Well, the question is, why is that? It's usually because the person in their late 40s, 50s, or 60s never made it through that life cycle fast enough. And especially in tech, now that person is deemed as someone that is not truly cut out for senior leadership. Because in tech, they'll always favor the up and comer rather than the person that maybe had their chance and never did anything with it. Now, the sad truth is, it's not like this is not true. It's not like that person in their late 40s or 50s or 60s is not cut out for senior leadership. It's just because they never made it through that life cycle fast enough. Could be that the company they worked for didn't really support their development or their growth, or their leadership team or their manager never really advocated for this. It could be that they never knew how to navigate this growth and get through to this level. It could be that they got complacent. Could be that they just did too many wrong things, right? Could be any of those reasons, or it could be a combination of those reasons. We don't know, but now that they've missed their chance, it's really hard for them to reach stage 3 of their career and move into the VP, SVP, C level, into these types of roles, which is what most people want, right? So why do we use this framework? Because it allows you to first get crystal clear on like where in your career you are. And that should then, once you know where you are today, then we will use the next framework to help you figure out where you're trying to go, which then will determine what's the right next thing you should or should not be doing. And so that is how we use framework number 1, to help you identify where in the career progression life cycle you currently sit, and then get clear on what you should be doing next. And then we use framework number 2, which is what we call the M&M store. And this is how this framework works in a nutshell. So let's presume, if you're watching this video, let's presume for a second, or just, hypothesize that you currently live in Los Angeles. And I came to you and I said, I need you to drive from LA to New York. And you cannot use any GPS device that you want, right? You can't put it in your phone. You can't have a physical map. You can't have anybody in your car. You just literally have to drive and figure it out. So if you're in LA, you most likely know that, okay, fine. If I just drive northeast long enough, at some point I will get to New York. We know that much. And we're assuming also that for some strange reason, you actually have to listen to me, right? So we know that you'll figure out that if I drive northeast from LA, Los Angeles, long enough, I will get to New York. What we don't know, however, is how many times will you get lost? How many times will you get turned around? How many times will you stop at places you don't want to stop? How much energy will you burn? How dejecting will that feel? Right? Probably a lot. We know that. But at some point, we know you'll get to New York. Again, we don't know how long, how many times you'll get lost. We just know you're going to get to New York at some point. Now, what we also don't know is where in New York will you actually end up? Will you end up in Buffalo? And, no disrespect to Buffalo, but who the heck really wants to be in Buffalo? Or will you end up in some really dangerous part of the city where you also probably don't want to be, right? We don't know where you'll end up. But because it took you so long, forever and a day, you're tired, you've burned so much gas, you're frustrated. By the time you get to Buffalo, the chances are you'll probably get out of your car, check into a hotel or Airbnb, and just chill out for a minute, right? But instead, if I said, I want you to drive from LA to the M&M store in downtown Manhattan, and this time you can use any GPS device that you want. Well, now I know exactly what you're going to do, right? You're going to put in the M&M store, downtown Manhattan, in your Google Maps, and what will it give you? It will give you the fastest, most effective route to the M&M store. Right? When you plug in a destination in your maps, in your navigation system, in Google Maps, whatever, it doesn't tell you, don't turn here, don't turn there, don't do this. It literally just tells you, do this thing. Turn here, turn there, exit here, do that, right? So now if you're driving from LA to the M&M store in downtown Manhattan, and you'll have the fastest, most effective route possible, chances are you won't really be frustrated because you know that you know exactly where you're going, and you know that you have the fastest route there. So you can actually enjoy that ride a little bit more. And on top of it, you will get M&Ms out of it. And who doesn't love M&Ms, right? So why do we use this framework? Well, think about how that relates to yours or most people's careers. How many times do they stop at places they shouldn't have stopped at? Going to companies they shouldn't have been to? How many times did they stay there for longer than they should have? How many times did they bounce around from this company to this company to this company to the other company and not really move up, but just kind of feel like they're moving side to side? It feels a little bit like purgatory, right? Career purgatory. Well, why is that? It's because that person never took the time to figure out what their M&M store was in the first place. It's like that saying goes, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. So how we use this framework for our clients is to really help them get crystal clear on where they're trying to go first. Because once they've identified their destination, that is aha moment number one. They feel very motivated. They feel almost empowered because now they know exactly where they're going and it aligns with who they are, what they value. And then we can help them reverse engineer the path on how to get there, literally plugging it in to a GPS system, right? So step one is figuring out where in that life cycle you are today. Then step two is figuring out, based on where you are today, where do you ultimately want to be going? So that way we avoid making the wrong turn. And then we use framework number 3, which is what is called small fish, big ocean versus big fish, small pond. So if you're really unclear on what to do next, then this is a really good framework for you, which is when you were earlier in your career, right? So think stage 1. It is a lot more advantageous in most cases to work for a bigger organization. Why? Because at a bigger organization, you will be expected to really just get good at one thing, or maybe one or two things if they have overlapping requirements and capabilities and skill sets, etc. So when you work at a larger company and you're really just focused on one thing, and you're working around so many talented people who've done that thing and they've trained you on that thing, you will naturally get really good at that one thing, right? Versus if you start off earlier in your career and you work for like a very early stage startup, not a venture back startup, but like something that's bootstrapped or seed round startup, typically what's going to happen, and we've seen this night and day, like so many times over and over again, they'll have you wear multiple hats because they need you to. They need you to focus on sales and marketing and some admin work and maybe some other project-based work. Or they're having you just wear so many different things that by the time you're done working there, you don't really know what you're truly good at. You don't even know what to market on your resume. You don't know how to write your resume because you will have done so many things, and you feel kind of frustrated because like, well, I don't even know what role I should be targeting. I did 15 different things at my last company. Plus, I don't even know what I'm truly good at. Right? So we want to avoid that feeling, and the way we avoid that feeling or from that ever happening is working first at a much larger company, getting really good at the thing that they're paying you to do. So if you're going to Google and you're hired as a product manager, the chances are you're going to end up becoming a really strong product manager because you will have worked with so many great product leaders. You'll have developed all the right habits and the ways of thinking, first principle level thinking, to get really good at a product as a product manager, right? Now as you kind of start becoming, well, the second benefit of this too, of working at a much larger company earlier on in your career, is the alumni network that you develop. So for example, if you started off at Apple early in your career, or Google, or even just a larger company, LinkedIn, you name it, doesn't have to be any of the FANGs or MANGs or whatever, just a larger organization. Well, your alumni network gets really big too. Because think about, like, let's say you worked at Salesforce, for example, and you worked there for 5 years, 4 years, became really good at that thing. Well, there's a good chance you'll also develop really good relationships or warm acquaintances with other really good people who have now gone on to do so many great things or work at so many other great companies. So your alumni network becomes really deep. But once you start kind of getting to the middle and late stages of your career, so now think end of stage 2 to stage 3, it's not as advantageous to be a small fish in a big company or in a big ocean, right? Because at this point, you're just one of many. And by this time in your career, you probably want all the other things. You want the bigger comp packages, right? The 2, 3, 4, 500K comp packages. You probably want the stock options. You probably want to be in a leadership role. You probably want to know that there's an easier path to, a senior leadership role, VP, SVP, maybe C-level, than if you were working at one of the big companies. Because if you are a small fish at a big organization, there's so many bigger fish ahead of you, right? Waiting for these promotions, waiting for the things that you want to do. So then what we tell our clients, if they are in stage 2 and stage 3, so if that's you, then it becomes a lot more advantageous to go and work for a smaller company after you've already worked at a big company. Why? Because for a few reasons. One, smaller companies are all aspiring to be one of the bigger companies. And two, they love to hire people from the bigger companies because, again, this person has probably became really good at the thing that they're doing. They probably come with really good habits. They understand how to build something at scale. And so most of these smaller companies will then overpay to get somebody like that to come in, and they'll usually put them into some sort of a senior leadership role or a leadership role in general, right? So if you think about it, like a venture-backed startup, let's think Series D, Series E, Series F, one that is pre-exit, they want to get acquired, or pre-IPO, they want to go public. They would rather have, and they usually hire, people that come from these big companies, the Airbnbs of the world, again, the LinkedIn, the Salesforce of the world. They will hire people from these companies because this person has already done what they're trying to do, but they've already done it at a much larger scale. So if you're in stage 1 of your career, going back to framework number 1, then you are a small fish in a big ocean, and it benefits you to go and work for a larger organization to deepen your expertise. So you become a subject matter expert rather than someone who's done so many things and a jack of all trades. As you start moving to stage 2, stage 3, it would benefit you to go and be the big fish in a smaller pond. And again, it could be a venture-backed startup that's pre-exit, pre-IPO, but it could also just be a smaller company. So let's say you worked at Amazon for 6 years. Well, now maybe you might want to work at Overstock. Amazon's a $1 trillion company. Overstock's a $2 billion company. They're both in the e-commerce space, e-tail. But now Overstock only has 1,500 employees or 2,000 employees versus Amazon that has like 500,000. Right? Sometimes we see this with even people in consulting. They've worked at Deloitte for so long, Accenture for so long, and Accenture has like 500,000 employees that they're just one of many senior managers. But if they decide to leave Accenture, go to industry, they have a much easier path towards a senior director, VP, SVP role. We've had so many clients that have left consulting and taken VP level roles without ever having to take a step back. We've seen a lot of people spend 6-7 years at these Boeings or these large organizations, the Disneys of the world, 8 years, and then they'll leave and go to a smaller company and absolutely crush it and knock it out of the park. Better comp salaries, or like compensation packages, better titles, leadership opportunities, path towards growth, stock, etc. They reap all of the rewards. So if I were to recap, it's really important to first get clear on where in this life cycle do you sit, so you avoid choosing another job that will keep you stuck in a stage that you don't want to be stuck at, and more importantly, you know you don't deserve to be in anymore. And then 2, we want to use framework number 2 to get really clear on where we're going, so we know what's the right next turn versus the wrong next turn. And then the last framework, we want to determine where you've come from, so we can help you move into, or you can help yourself move into a senior level position if you've already gathered all the skills and experiences that you need, so you don't stay stuck and become one of many and just kind of sit idly and go, you move sort of horizontally for so much longer. We don't want that, because no one wants to go this way. They all want to go up, right? So hopefully these 3 frameworks help you. These are the frameworks we use with our clients. Either we use all of them or some of them or a combination of them to help them avoid, as I said, feeling lost in their career by determining where they're going, get clear on where they want to go and how they're going to get there, and then determine how they're going to not only get there, but get there faster and move up. So I hope these help. And if you have any questions around these, please reach out to us. I look forward to talking to you at some point. Take care.